Surprise, for many of you, I'm sure you came in here thinking, oh, we're going to hear a song. And for some of you who kind of dodged the song to go get coffee, you're going to miss out. But all jokes aside, my name is Reverend Richard, and as always, I'm grateful that you are here this Sunday, whether you're watching this live or later on. And today we're going to concentrate on the 4 levels of consciousness. This was something that hit home for me, as I've always admitted that one of my greatest faults and greatest teachers is that I tend to react to things. What I mean by that is, and we've seen the memes that all say, don't react in an emotional state. And some of us can suppress emotions and things like that. So I came to learn later on that consciousness is where we need to learn to react. And on top of knowing these conscious levels is knowing how to climb from them, because we're never always in one consciousness all the time. So with that being said, as I said, we are grateful you're here today. I hope you took a minute to share and go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And also, how many questions did you get right during that Thanksgiving quiz? I know they're fun sometimes to join in, and definitely this week is Thanksgiving, and there may be a lot of controversy about how this Thanksgiving came about. I kind of like to put that aside and just be grateful for the things in our life, the people in our lives, and no matter what, for me, the gratitude happens in a lot of different ways, but it took me a long time to get here. It really did. So I hope that today's lesson really hits home for you. So before we do that, let us go ahead and pray in. We're going to pray and meditate, and then we're going to come in with the first song. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and get yourself comfortable. If you ran to get that coffee, as I said, put the coffee down, sit back, relax, begin to breathe. Just know that we are in this moment, this now. What's happened this past week, let it go. What you think is going to happen in the future, let it go. I want you here with me in this present moment. So just breathe into this moment. Just allow it all to fall away. I know it's not always easy, but breathing brings us back to that essence of life. Knowing that now we're in the presence of love and kindness and good that we know as God in our lives. We move by releasing the outer world, entering into that Christ consciousness within ourselves, that space within that our brother and teacher Jesus taught us to release and to move into before we perform the miracles in our lives. And I'd like to begin our meditation today with our daily word. This one came from 1931, and the word for today is, "The Spirit of Christ within me now sings its song of praise, and my every thought and act is blessed." In our consciousness of Spirit's praise, we find that all we think and do is approved. We see that deep within us, Spirit chants the song of praise. There is something within us that is happy and joyful when we are doing Spirit's bidding. If you would free yourself from any thought of self-condemnation, turn from the habit of taking a personal view of yourself, of your seeming failures and shortcomings, and seek to see your spiritual self. Try to see your innate perfection, which God always sees. Tries to find within you that which Spirit approves of and praises. You will find it easy to get into the consciousness of praise if you are generous in praising others. You will discover that praise, after all, comes very easily. It's easy for Spirit to praise you and easy for you to praise others. In turn, we feel a warm, tingling, velvety feeling within us when we know that God is approving of what we think and do. The voice of consciousness within us, through us, and all us comes from God. And we reflect on 1 Corinthians 4:5. As we take a deep breath and we continue to move deeper into ourselves, holding those words in our consciousness, knowing that today's consciousness is that within the presence. We continue to breathe and know that we are all, that we have the potentiality to be the best we are. when we learn to allow outer circumstances, that race consciousness that continues to bombard us, when we release that, we stop allowing it to influence our thoughts and our actions. We allow ourselves to listen to that inner voice that guides us correctly. And we know even then there's work to be done, because our voices consist of our ego self, our potential self that has been grown and inundated by our outer world and create a persona for ourselves in protection, where we know that our mind is trying to protect us. And then there's the true self, the one where truth is released, and soon it may piss us off, but it will set us free. But we must learn to discern the two voices and know that all in our life is a lesson and a gift. And no matter where we find ourselves in consciousness, when we come from a place of love, then we've learned what it is for us to do. And we move forward. We release this meditation into the silence for a few moments, allowing us to just listen and to be. And as we come back from that silence, we are grateful for whatever has come to us. And if it didn't come to us, or we couldn't differentiate between the voices, it's okay. Even with all the practice that I have, it's hard to distinguish sometimes. We're grateful for that too, because it says we're alive, we're experiencing our human experience, and we're still on that journey to become the Christ. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you. As we release this meditation, we open our eyes and know. So today's lesson will be a little bit different. we're going to move into song, one of my favorite songs, one that brings tears to my eyes every time I hear it, and I'll tell you more about that song during our lesson. And we're going to be breaking up the lesson into 4 conscious levels with songs that represent each. So sit back, relax, and think of this as one long meditation. And I'll see you on the other side.
I've had my share of heartache and sorrow, moments of sadness and lonely despair. I've been down on my knees, begging life, please take this burden I bear. I embrace this pain that I feel, for I know it's birthing me into a greater way of being. I'm ready to receive all the gifts the storm may bring. There's a deeper sense within. I've got unfolded. Yes, these clouds are lifting me. Lord knows I've tried to run from these battles, but each time I circle to where I begin. I can't seem to move on till the learning is done. So teach me the perfection there. I embrace this pain that I feel, for I know it's birthing me into a greater way of being. I'm ready to receive all the gifts the storm may bring. There's a deeper sense within of God unfolding. My light is growing. Yes, these clouds are lifting me, raise me up to the next glorious mountain. I will love each valley and peak. Yeah. There will be a new me for certain. At every step, every turn, my God's waiting there. My greatness is I embrace this pain that I feel, for I know it's birthing me into a greater way of being. I'm ready to receive all the gifts the storm may bring. There's a deeper sense within of God unfolding. My light is growing. There's peace in knowing that these clouds are lifting me. Are lifting me. I'm grateful for gifts that the storm may bring. I know these clouds are lifting me. I'm grateful for gifts the storm may bring. I know these clouds are lifting me. Are lifting me. I'm grateful for gifts the storm may bring. Yeah. These clouds are lifting me. I'm grateful for gifts the storm may bring.
So welcome back. Had to wipe the tears away again. When the gifts the storms may bring is one of my favorite songs that really hit me, because I realize that no matter how I feel, there's always gifts in that storm. And it takes a lot for me to move out of that race consciousness, that outer consciousness, because from a human perspective, we want to hold on to it. And that's what brings us into our first level of consciousness. Now, I'm taking the information from 4 Levels of Consciousness, which was compiled by Reverend Ken Daigle, who wrote Absolute Abundance. It's a 3-part prosperity program. I've gone through all 3. I was blessed by Unity on the Bay and Reverend Juan, who's now the senior minister there, who allowed it to be taught online. So I was able to join that class with them, and it's a great class. And trust me, I'll be taking it over and over again, because still a work in progress. But he compiled the 4 levels of consciousness. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Unity has a book written by Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, which is heart-centered metaphysics. Basically, it's the theology of unity. And in one of the sections is the 4 consciousness. And as I said earlier, I've always been a person to react. And it could be from a fear of altercation, a fear of being wrong, a fear of looking bad. Doesn't matter. I've always waited for something to happen, and then I react. And trust me, most of the time I reacted badly. But as I started going through Unity Teaching and the ministerial school, and I promised myself to work on myself on the way, I learned of the 4 levels of consciousness. And then I realized that it's not so much the emotional side of how we react to things or how we accept things in our lives, but the level of consciousness from which we look at it. So our first level, which is the level we all usually fall into, and I used to have a mentor in business who used to say, I'm on my way to the top because the bottom is getting too crowded. And that's because when we think about the victim consciousness, this is where most people like to stay. So Reverend Ken Daigle breaks it down to default consciousness, thoughts, tools, advantages, and the opportunities that we get in this consciousness of that we're working through. Now, victim consciousness is also kind of like when we did the 5 principles. We talked about God is, I am, I think, I pray, I live it. To remind us of the 5 principles, the same thing with the 4 consciousness. To remind ourselves, first is victim consciousness, which is to me. And at the end of the talk, I will remind you on how to remind yourself where you're at. So the victim consciousness is to me. So I want to refer to John 5:2-9, which is the story of Jesus finding the cripple at the pool of Bethesda. So now there in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here's a great number of disabled people using to lie, the blind, the lame, and paralyzed. One who had been there for an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there, learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me in the pool when the water is stirred, and when I try to get in, somebody else goes down ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." Once the man was cured, he picked up his mat and walked. Now, from a literal Bible sense, we're hearing a miracle that Jesus allowed this man to walk. But metaphysically, let's look at that story. If Jesus representing the Christ within us, that part within us, and he's been in the same place for the longest time, and all he did was tell him to pick up his mat and walk, is that the same as us telling ourselves to stop being in victimhood, to stop being in that area of our lives waiting for someone to help us, or waiting for someone to tell us what to do, or allowing the outer consciousness, the race consciousness, to dictate who we are, and waiting for someone to save us from it rather than learning from those gifts? So this story can take on a lot of different meanings. For me, metaphysically, it is that the Christ within told this man, stop waiting and stop using excuses, get up and go do it. And trust me, I've had a lot of those in my life where I didn't listen. And there are times in my life where I had to wake up and say, you know what? That Christ is right. I need to do something no matter where I am in life. So the default consciousness of being in victim consciousness is the external forces control what happens. Other people can affect my well-being. Things are always happening to me. Then is the thoughts. What does this always happen to me? Life is hard. I never get a break. I get hit with the cosmic 2x4. I used to say the universe was kicking my butt. So these are the things that we begin to think when we stop looking at the gifts in our lives, when we stop looking at the people in our lives as gifts and lessons and things, and allowing the outer consciousness to move us into a place of something's happening to me, rather than something is working with me or teaching me in a lesson. Victim is also, for me, the area of lack, because we can look at our lives and our job sucks, but instead of being grateful for the fact that you have a way to support yourself or your family, our spouses, our friends, the people around me, the neighborhood, we start looking at everything that's wrong rather than looking at what's right. And when we do that, we let go of things that are meant to be in our lives, and we let go of things that, maybe were placed there for a reason. Sometimes in our lives we have second guessed ourselves, that we've done things because we don't know. But rather than walk in faith and say, I am here, this is where I'm at, this is what I need to do, we move forward. Now, I've tried to do that in my life a few times. My job with Silent Unity right now was one of those. My job was getting stressful. The hours, at that time, I knew I needed to change my hours. Now, things didn't happen the way I wanted them, but the fact that this opportunity came at the right time told me to take a leap of faith. Now, of course, I checked in with the woman to make sure as well, because I doubt myself. It doesn't matter what title I hold. I doubt myself sometimes, and even though it's there and I'm hearing it, and we'll talk about that in other consciousness, I needed reassurance to make the leap. She gave me a boost of faith, and I made that leap of faith, and I am now working with Silent Unity, and the work they do is great. So like the man there, I picked up my mat and moved. And I keep trying to do that with my life every day. When I see where I may be faulting or I may need to do something, I move in faith as best I can, because I know that I'm going to fall back into victimhood. No matter how high I climb that ladder in consciousness, we're all going to fall back. Lisa Nichols, great speaker and motivational speaker, actually inspirational speaker as she calls herself, says it best. She goes, we all visit victimhood, but it's not a place to hang your hat. You want to move out of there as quickly as possible. So what are the tools that people use to hold on to being a victim? Well, giving up, complaining, commiserating, blaming, justifying, and patience. And patience in this case is waiting rather than doing. And what are some of the advantages of being in that victim state? Well, we can gain sympathy. I had to look at my circle of friends a long time ago, and not that they're bad people at all, but when their mind is in that space of, woe is me, so-and-so is treating me bad, so-and-so this and that, I wasn't this and that, and that's a constant in your ear, you begin to believe that of yourself and the people around you and the people you care about and the situations you're in, and then all of a sudden everything becomes negative. The other thing is receiving help, because if I can put out the woe is me, there's going to be a bunch of people that'll jump. Remember what I said at the beginning? My mentor said it best. He said, I'm headed to the top because the crowd at the bottom is too crowded. And that's because we can always find someone to defend us when we're in victimhood. But when we let go of those people and look for people who say, well, wait a minute. Okay, I understand what you're saying and what you're feeling, whatever, but what about, and kick your butt a bit? That's that. That's why, like I said, I keep my circles small so that I can have people say, hey, what you doing? Why are you doing that? Don't you think you're better than that? I see it in you. Why don't you see it in yourself? I'm sure you've had that conversation with yourself and somebody in your life. How do we move from victimhood? Well, we look for the opportunities when we're in consciousness. Remember what I said, it's not bad or good. It's just where we are at this moment. So we want to look for the opportunities, the gifts. So some of the opportunities here is the opportunity to learn to give up blame and shame. The opportunity to give up despair and the opportunity to change. It's not always easy, but we do what we need to do. But the place here to move out of consciousness is we know how to be change, but what is influencing that change? And that's what's important. So that is victim, everything happening to me. So you want to remember this consciousness is knowing as it to me, as we move into our next song and we come back with Victor consciousness.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith. choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I'll surrender to my greatest, highest good. I release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am kinder every moment, every day. I'm more loving every moment, every day. I surrender every moment, every day.
So again, another great song by Faith Rivera, "I Will Surrender," and it's just reminding you that, even in Victor consciousness, we hear it all the time. People don't want to be wrong, and in victim consciousness, that's one of the things that I know for myself was one of the challenges, because you always want to be right, and everybody else is going to be wrong. Reverend Edwina Gaines, she talks about, she goes, most of my anger comes from the time that when people don't act in the way Queen Edwina wants, and she laughs about it, but she has to realize that, we can only control ourselves. So this is where we move from victim to victor consciousness. But victor consciousness, I will tell you from the beginning, is a two-edged sword. And the reason for that, and I want you to keep this in your mind, we call it victor consciousness. Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith has a visioning process, which also has 4 levels of consciousness, and he calls this level the manifester level of consciousness. So the default consciousness is well, first of all, the conscious, we will recognize it by me. So victim was to me, victor is by me. And default consciousness is that the things that are happening is by my choice, I determine my life. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, and things are happening for me. So the thoughts we have is, I can accomplish anything I put my mind to it. I can control my thoughts and my life. So this is where the double-edged sword comes in, because I've seen this firsthand over and over, and trust me when I say it's happened to me. My daughter and I, we joke all the time, because if anyone who's so young has proven the process and the principles we teach at Unity, has been her in her own life. But we joke about it because we know that when we start to see things happen, we know we're in manifester mode. And we know that here's the problem with victor consciousness. When we remove God out of the equation, meaning that our consciousness is coming from ourselves, the manifesting that happens can be both great and, oh my God, what is happening? Okay? So we joke about being, when we know we're in that space, we're like, nope, positive thoughts, keep it happy, because we know. And how many times have you thought ill about someone in your life? And because you're dealing with other people, you're in victim consciousness, you're dealing with people who are cheerleading you. And trust me, this has happened to me. And as soon as I speak those words, not realizing the consciousness I am, something immediately happens. So when we talk about that cosmic 2x4, it's almost like consciousness is telling you, spirit is telling you, why are you in this space? Maybe you broke something. Maybe all of a sudden you got a call that money was, taken from you. Maybe, God forbid, something happened to a family member right at that moment. And we could say it's coincidence, synchronicity, whatever it is. But I know for me, I've had it happen over and over. And it reminds me that as much as I want to put blame somewhere, or I want to, utilize my energy for something rather than the positivity, it reminds me to back it up and realize that there's more to this than just me. And that's what this is. So what are the tools we use to start moving into victor consciousness and beyond? So of course we talk about affirmations, denials, vision boards, affirmative prayer, guided meditation, power poses. We talked about that in one of our talks, going into power poses to help you feel empowered. But again, I need you to remember, when you're in manifester mode, make sure that when you are participating in these things, that your level of consciousness is coming from a place of good, a place of God. Because again, trust me, and if my daughter was on camera, she'd be shaking her head very hard. We have experienced this at a higher level, knowing that we think we're right. We're talking about something that we swear is right, and then it all falls apart. And when we miss those clues, is one of the pitfalls of being a victor, because we fall back into victim consciousness. And that's why you don't want to stay in victor consciousness, because to be a victor, you must always be a victim, and that becomes a vicious cycle. So when you move into victor consciousness, just remember that I'm here. I've got my tools, my affirmation, my denials, my vision boards, my affirmative prayer, my guided meditations, my power poses. And I'm moving into a space of self-empowerment, action-based, proactive disposition, manifesting into the physical. Remember, you're a manifester now. And again, I know I keep harping on this. Make sure you're coming from a place of God, a place of good, because you'll begin to manifest things in your life that you swear are working for your good, and you begin to realize that maybe you're really coming from a place of victim. So what are the opportunities that come with being a victor to start moving into our next level, which is vessel? The opportunity to understand that what you desire may show up in a form that you never considered before, or from where you least expect it. So from a positive point of this, unexpected money, unexpected things. I've been blessed sometimes where things are going wrong and then all of a sudden something shows up in my life. If I'm in the right consciousness, even in the storms, as the song said, the gifts of the storm, when you can move from that area of the storm and know that in this time, even when the challenges come, if I stay in the right consciousness, it will manifest into my life. I will express into my life that good. May not seem like it. But when you do that, you'll see that no matter what you think your outer appearance looks like, something good will come from it. Then the opportunities, as I said, is to understand why. And that's what I'm blessed with, and I love that my daughter is blessed with that as well, that she can understand when she's in the wrong consciousness, because what's manifesting is like, oh, wait, hold on here. And she can change her level of consciousness. Same thing with me. And the same thing I wish upon you. Because we're quick to say, you know what, let's just do this because this and this. And we forget that take a breath. And breathe into now and be grateful for where you are. And as a mentor once told me, don't be content. Which is why I'm always trying to strive. And when I find out I do something wrong and I need to fix it, I'm going to try to fix it. And I fail, and I move, and I fail, and I move. And that's where the victim-victor consciousness comes from. But anybody who's successful will tell you you're going to fail over and over again. But I can dwell on the failure, or I can dwell on the movement that I made. Failing Forward was one of my favorite books. But I want you to remember that even at victor consciousness, we're still moving up the ladder. But if you want to stay here, the only way to do that is to continuously fall back to victor. And the victim, falling back to victim. And victim is where the loudest people are around you. This is where everything keeps telling you and influencing you. And it becomes so bombarded, it becomes our own thinking. And we have to rise above it. So welcome to Victor Consciousness. But we're not going to stay here. And I will see you after.
Yeah. I can do it. I can do anything. When I say what I want and I walk my talk, it all comes back to me. I can do it. I can do anything. I release, let go, go with the flow. This is where I'm supposed to be. Today I say I'll get out of my way and live the life that's meant for me. I state my claim in Spirit's name. I choose my destiny. I can do it. I can do anything. When I say what I want, I walk my talk. It all comes back to me. I can do it. I can do anything. I release, let go, go with the flow. This is where I'm supposed to be. Right here, right now, today I choose how to be all I can be. I can heal my life, let go of the strife, embrace the mystery. I can do it. I can do anything. When I say what I want, I walk my talk. It all comes back to me. I can do it. I can do anything. I release, let go, go with the flow. This is where I'm supposed to be. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Can do it now. I can do it. I can do anything. 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 Do it.
So as we move into our next level of consciousness, and I hope you enjoyed the song again. When we talk about doing things, I can do things, and we focus only on what we are or what we can do, we miss the point that there's something inside of us that can push us forward. And that's as we move into the level of vessel consciousness, or as we would say it, through me. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding." So when we lean in our own understanding, we have to remember where we just came from. If we're in victim consciousness, then we're relying on our subconscious, which has been pre-programmed by the outer world. People telling us what we're not grateful for, telling us what we're missing. The world's a bad place. Our jobs are bad. Our people are bad. And there's just negativity coming from everywhere because people are in that lack of consciousness, that fear consciousness. And, I learned a long time ago that many people around me would cheer on things that didn't serve me because that brought me to their level and kept them comfortable as well. So as you move to victor consciousness, we're now still leaning on our understanding, but we're at a point where we're like, we don't want to be down in victim consciousness. We want to rise above those people. We want to rise above those situations. We want to get out of there. We found the opportunity to give up blame and shame and the opportunity to give up despair and an opportunity to change as we grow up. But we're still looking at it as based on our understanding. We're still coming from a place where our fear may still be dictating us. And sometimes that fear is not that it's a bad thing, because again, we have an ego, that ego persona, which is there to help think that we're protecting ourselves because this is where we've been, or this is what we're doing. Or if I, eliminate something that was put in place for whatever reason, that it's going to help as well. But the problem here is that we're still coming from an understanding that we don't know. And all we can do is move forward. So when we move into vessel consciousness, we begin to understand that the understanding we're looking for is a guidance within ourselves. But at vessel consciousness, we still have a sense of separation that is still us, but there's something that's working through us. So some of the thoughts that go through our head at this level is God is at work in me. The universe has a plan. Divine order is at work in this situation. So again, the thoughts we have as well is, I've not done by me. Spirit flows through me. I am an instrument of the divine. God gave me this situation. And in many cases, we say, God won't give you more than what you can handle. And then the joke is, well, I wish God didn't trust me so much. But we move forward in faith, knowing that there's just something inside of us, something that can supersede our, that supersedes our understanding and is giving us some type of guidance. Now, I've heard this a lot of times, and this is where victor consciousness comes. We fall back into victor consciousness, is where an idea or something comes through and we dismiss it because we start talking to ourselves and we talk ourselves out of it. Or something comes through, and when we talk ourselves out of it, a new idea comes in, but it comes in from that ego perspective. And we jump on that because it seems easier to do and it feels more comfortable because we're trying to stay in that comfort section of ourselves. So as we move through it, so what are the tools we use to go into vessel consciousness as well as to move from here? And it's visioning, where we use our power of our imagination. Meditation. So we're not using guided meditation anymore. We're now moving into a space where we learn to move ourselves into the space between the gaps of our thoughts, as Dr. Wayne Dyer has taught me through his teachings, is we're trying to get into the gap. We're not stopping our thinking, but we know that we can silence the mind for a little bit. And when thoughts come in, we can send them on their way and still stay in that silence to listen. We return to a beginner's mind. Be like the child to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Openness and flexibility. When we start looking at being open to things, we're not so rigid as this has to happen this way. This is the only way I know. That is it. No, we're open to know and listen. Is there a way to be led down the path without taking such a strong stance only? And flexibility, of course. Then there's the surrender, surrendering into that thought, surrendering into that practice. And finally, forgiveness. I've done enough exercises with you on talks in the church, in which we make a list of people that need to be forgiven. And we always forget that forgiveness has to start here. I've gone through some, times where we start to relive our lives in our mind and go back and go, wow, why did I do this? Or why this and that? And you fall into victimhood, because now, even though you know it's you're blaming yourself, you're beating yourself up, you're blaming whatever, rather than saying, you know what? I'm going through a human experience. I make mistakes. And I forgive myself for that mistake, knowing that I can learn from that and be better. So some of the advantages of this stage is to take the ego out of the equation. And as I said, there was a young lady who, young lady who when we used to go to classes, says, well, people say ego is bad, and ego is not bad in any way. Ego is just a persona, the individual persona that you have grown from outer circumstances. We were bombarded by our teachers, our parents, society in itself. All, in many cases, are not that, many may have an agenda, but many also are doing the best they can with what they understand. So this is where forgiveness comes in. I don't know how many times I've been told that a certain person, a certain business, a certain whatever is bad. Stay away from them, stay away from them. And then when I get to know these people, it's like, okay, they were misunderstood. A lot of our racial issues may come from that stem. I know growing up, there was always a separation of races, or even your sexual preferences was like, oh, wait, no, those people. But yet those people were my people. And I had to learn to forgive myself for thinking in that way and move forward. Manifesting beyond your imagination. So this is still kind of dangerous territory, but because you know that this manifestation is coming from somewhere, we're normally focused more on the good and that good coming through us. So when we manifest, it tends to be in a better place. I even say sometimes I manifest people because I could be going through something and all of a sudden somebody will text me or somebody will call me. And when I speak to them, they'll be like, I had you on my mind and I needed to say something to you. And in traditional, a lot of traditional beliefs, that'll be like, oh, God spoke to me and I needed to tell you something. But you can tell when something's genuine from the true divinity within them. And that ego perspective that says, I need to tell you something. I believe God told me, but I'm coming from a place of my own individual perspective. And remember that perspective is personal. It's not divine. It is usually influenced by the things around us. It's not always easy to tell the difference, trust me. But when you can start to learn to differentiate between what is true and what is perspective, you'll see changes in your life. But never, ever beat yourself up because you've fallen back. So what are the opportunities at this level to start moving away? Is the opportunity to give up the idea of separation. That level of, well, it's working through me, so it's got to be something other than me that's working through me. We want to start moving away from that. The opportunity to own your power and the opportunity to redefine God for ourselves. And I shared with you that there was a minister where they wrote that they believe that as you evolve, so should your vision of God evolve and what God is to you. If you're still stuck in that God that you learned as a child, then God has never evolved and has never become better. And all we've done is created an image in our own human experience of what God is, rather than evolving with that idea. So this is vessel consciousness through me. So we've gone through three different conscious levels so far. Victim, which is everything's happening to me. Victor is everything that's happening is by me. And you get that chest out there. Vessel is something's happening through me. You begin to soften. You become more, you surrender a little bit to whatever this is. And that's through me. And when we come back, we're going to hit the highest level of consciousness, which is verity oneness, which is as me.
Of
So again, God Within Me, love the song by Denise Rosier, reminds us that, when we're in vessel consciousness, even if we haven't reached that level of being able to get to this next level, that we can always tap into that God within me. But as we move to the highest rung on this ladder, that level that we all wish we could just park our cars and stay here, is verity or oneness consciousness, also known as or as me. So we're now taking away all separation. We're taking away all things and know that when we look at Jesus as the Christ, that brother and way shower of ours, that he's telling us that we can be the same. In fact, John 14:12, he says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do, because I am going to the Father." So when we talk about, he's literally saying that not only could we do what he was doing, but we can do greater things. We evolve from what he has per se. He is, in unity, what we believe, the greatest example of the Christ, the greatest or the perfect example of what a human experience should be when we tap into our full being. So again, our default consciousness here is that there's no separation between me and the divine. There's no separation between me and anything or anyone. And divine order is at work as me. Something that was taught to me a long time ago is when we can see something in someone else, label it good or bad, it first has to be within ourselves. So there is no separation. Because when we can only see the good in those people, is because we choose to only see the good. And when we choose to see only the bad in those people, is because that's the choice we made and we're coming from within. Divine order is at work as me. So just quickly, divine order, when we talk about divine order, we're talking about tapping into the divine mind, producing an idea and expressing it. Sometimes it is the Holy Trinity, as we say, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Father being the divine mind, Son being the idea or that Christ consciousness producing this idea, and us expressing it. So when people like to throw out, oh, that bad thing that happened, that's divine order. No, not really. It's just divine order may be working there, but when it got to that filtering stage of expression, it goes back to what level of consciousness were you expressing at. So some of our thoughts is God and I are one. I am divine. I am spirit. I am Christ. And I know this one tends to hit people, especially people like me who have come from an embedded theology or a traditional Christian, is I am God. I am good. I am that which I express into this world. I no longer blame or point fingers. No matter how many times I want to fall down the ladder and hit that victimhood, I know I can't blame anyone. I can only blame myself. And in that blame, I find lessons. In that lessons, I find steps. In that steps, I find my consciousness and how I can move forward. Knowing it's all me. And I tap into this source that we know is good, we know is God, we can call it spirit, universe, whatever it is. I tap into it, and I choose to mold it as I see it. So again, some of our tools in this level is meditation. Again, an evolving meditation, oneness prayer, consciousness studies, surrendering forgiveness, and now, not patience in waiting for something to happen, but patience in knowing that it will. The advantages of being at this level is peace and serenity, a stability, and manifestation in the spiritual realm, where we begin to manifest an idea and know that because we are in the right consciousness, that manifestation will express as me. So this is where we have the opportunity to see past our current consciousness and limits. We stop looking at our outer world. We stop listening to people and things in the outer world and look past it and say, what could be? How can I strengthen where I am now, be grateful for where I am now, and become greater than where I am now? Because I've told you that even in metaphysical studies, we know God as under the law of pure potentiality. And at this level, we know that we can tap into that and be the best we can be. And being the best we can be, we become a light, not for ourselves, but for the people around us. And we stop putting those people down and helping people up. I love Casting Crown's song where he says, I'm not pointing a finger, I'm holding out my hand. And that's what I do today. No matter the challenges, as we move to the right consciousness, we find the right answers. And when we find the right answers, we're in a consciousness of moving forward in faith and tapping into those 12 powers, moving ourselves to be like the Christ Jesus, and knowing that the Christ within ourselves is the ultimate goal. And I remind you from Matthew 5:14-16, where he says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, and put it on a stand and gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And from the Aramaic word of Abba, meaning beloved, that feeling of heaven which is within ourselves, when we tap into that good and we let go of the anger, the hate, and everything else we have toward people, toward things, toward situations. We've done the forgiveness work. We surrender into the moment of the idea. We move into a place of light that when we shine that light, we give permission for others to do the same. And it is in that oneness that we all grow this light together. We are here to have a human experience. We are going to fall in consciousness, but we know that the only way is up. We don't remain in that place to be comfortable, to run or to do things. We stay in that place for a moment to say, hey, I see what consciousness I am. I need to go to my next level. And don't be afraid of it. It happens always. And it's scary. But with faith, you get through it. And you are a light. And it's because you are a light. I encourage you to watch this video over and over. If you're more interested in the levels, go ahead and get the book, Heart-Centered Metaphysics by Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, and read upon it more. I know the older metaphysics doesn't, if I'm correct, did not have those 4 levels. And if you want to go even further and outside of the unity principles, check out the visioning process by Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, which takes this to a whole other level of understanding. And that's how I became able to really understand Victor, because we hear it all the time. We want victory, we want Victor, but I needed to understand why we're talking about moving past that. And I was grateful to find that visioning process by Michael Bernard Beckwith, which taught me that how manifesting from me can be a double-edged sword. But as I move through the consciousness in a higher level, manifesting becomes such a beautiful gift. So don't let outer perspective and outer opinion drive your life. Move yourself into the right consciousness for yourself and see what miracles happen. Because remember, Jesus himself said, you can do all that I can do and so much more. Hope you get something from this. Please share this so that people can understand this, because these 4 levels of consciousness transcends all of just unity teachings, but can impact people who don't even know what unity means. And we need to stop being the best kept secret and allow people to know we're here for them. Namaste.
the dance floor, the first to raise my hand, the first to state my opinion, the first to take a stand. I won't play it safe and wait for a sign. I'm gonna throw myself out there and let my light shine. Let it shine, let it shine. I let my big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. Be on Oprah and Conan, 60 Minutes and The View. They'll all be talking about me and all the things I do. I'll be the one who sets the bar, the one who's in the know. One who sets the bar, one who's in the know. The world come to see where fashion trends will go. 'Cause I shine, yes I shine. I let my big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. For too many years I hid my light, fearing I was too much, and who I was just wasn't right. Then I heard this voice from within and up above, saying you're here to be a shining light and give and receive love. So now I'm going for my dreams, nothing's in my way. Carpe diem is my mantra, I practice kindness every day. I take time to connect, take time to have fun. I wanna know I used up every drop before my life is done. So I shine, yes I shine. I let my big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. Too many years I hid my light, fearing out too much, and who I was just wasn't right. Then I heard this voice from within and up above, saying you're here to be a shining light and give and receive love. I am a woman of power, a woman of grace. The life that I lived is in every wrinkle on my face. I love myself so I can love you too. I know when we're connected there ain't nothing we can do. So let's shine, let's all shine. Let our big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. We can shine, we can shine. Let our big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. I can shine, yes I can shine. I let our big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. So let's shine, let's all shine. Let our big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine.
So I hope you got something from this lesson. I really put my heart and soul into this because it really is something that helped me move to where I am today. Again, still going through a human experience, still making my mistakes, but I can now move from a better place of reacting from an emotion to reacting from a place in consciousness, which I hope that even if I fall on the ladder, I have shown that I can grow and be better. And I wish that for each of you, and that's my gift for you today. With that being said, this is a time, as always, that we give you, that as you receive, you can give. And if you wish to help us out, again, we have a donate button on our YouTube channel. You can go to our website at weesc.org, which allows you to donate and help out with equipment and things like that. And if you're donating to your spiritual centers that you still attend, please do, because the work here is not done. And we want to help as many people as possible. So please grab your gift in your hand if you do have it. If you don't and you've already sent it or whatever, please hold it virtually in your heart and say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I circulate, and the knowledge of who I truly am. And I'm so grateful. And we know that it's doing the work because we say it is, and so we let it be as it moves on through the world. And again, I want to thank you for being here with me for the last hour or so. I truly hope you get something from this. I truly hope you gift this lesson to someone, in unity or not, that may need to hear these steps, because I do truly believe that we can be better people and better lights for not only mostly ourselves, but for the people around us as we practice this. So I will bless you as we join in together, as we say, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I am so grateful for you, for the lessons that I have learned and shared with you. Love you. Nothing else, nothing you can do about that. And I hope to join you next week in our next